WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany, often tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today I have something from Bruichladdich The Organic, 2011 is when it was distilled, 2022 is when it was bottled. 50% as always, or almost always at Bruichladdich. And organic means that the entire process, from the farming to the distilling, to the maturation, to the bottling, has to all be organically certified. Now, I actually did take a look at Whiskybase just very briefly and typed in the word organic to see how many different bottles we actually have at the moment online in the database that has the word organic in the title of the whiskeys. 322. That's a lot. Or better said, I'm going to use it the other way around. Bruichladdich is not doing anything anymore that is frontier, groundbreaking, avant-garde. This is something that people have been and are doing and it's just a normal method. All right, so for example, a German distillers named Ayers, they have organic single malt. Ben Romach, 2008. Now, they started before that, but that's okay. We have Bruichladdich, started 2003 with their organic series. Very, very nicely done. Deanston has a 15-year-old organic as well. Great job. In France, there's organic distilling companies over there. We have something called Highgrove. I really wanted to know where Highgrove is located. So, Highgrove, I don't know. All right, good. We have, whoops, now I put everything in the wrong order. Now we got it back here. So, we have Highgrove, as I talked about. We have Highland Harvest Organic Single Malt. We have Isle of Fionia. Covol from Chicago has organic. Loch Lomond has a 17-year-old organic. They've been doing this now since 2000, actually. A Danish distillery called Mosgaard has organic whiskey. Everything they're doing is basically organic there. Everything Nick Neen is doing is organic. Yeah, they are not in just a CO2 neutral distillery. They are organic from the very, very beginning. And of course, we have another German company called Prussian Whiskey, or the Preußische Whiskey. We have the Rock Filter Distillery with their bourbon in the States. We have Split Rock Organic Bourbon. We have Springbank. Back in 1992, they made their first organic whiskey. And the Wigle Distillery and the Pittsburgh Distilling Company has organic wheat and. What I'm trying to exemplify is Bruichladdich used to be, maybe they still are in some areas, but I'm just going to say the word used to be at the very, very forefront of innovation in the whiskey world. Now I'm putting a little bit of a question mark behind that if they still are. Sorry, Adam, and everyone else working there, all right? So, now, Waterford and what they're doing there with Mark Renee, who used to be Bruichladdich and now he is in Waterford in Ireland, that's still absolutely amazing. Not everything I like, but what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, that is still a basis of terroir. Now, this is terroir driven, one farm, single farm. Now, this single farm is close to Inverness. So they don't, so they can actually malt it on the mainland, bring it over then to the distillery on Islay and distill it there, let it age there, bottle it there, and actually sell it to the whole world. Now this is probably going to be one of the very last metal tins that they did. I think they're going away from that as well due to the environmental concerns, packaging, and costs. What am I going to compare it to? Now, I'm going to compare it to something I already have a video of. I think in July I put the video out that's called Bruichladdich Islay Barley from 2013, bottled 2022. And this is actually a very, very interesting product because this was made at, is it 7 different farms? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 different farms on the Islay of, or the island of Islay. May 2022, I was actually on Islay. I experienced, as Roy from Aquavita says, the magic of Islay. The island itself is totally awesome. Now, I'm not a peathead, nor will I probably ever be a peathead. We visited every single distillery. We didn't go into Coile because at that moment it was closed due to renovation and restoration and improvements. But I stood outside, took some pictures, and all the other 8 distilleries I was there: Ardbeg, Lagavulin, Lafroy, Kilhoman, Atnaho, Bruichladdich, Bonahaben, Bowmore. I think I forgot one. I was just listing things off there. And when I was at the distillery, Bruichladdich, I'm so sorry for everyone that loves this distillery. That spark, that excitement, that fascination with the distillery just didn't jump over into my heart. So sorry. All right. Now, the organic costs about 80 euros. The Islay barley at the moment is about 60 euros. 8 years, 11 years, 50 ABV. This was malted barley. This is barley from the island of Islay, taken over to the mainlands, brought back after it's been malted, and then actually processed. This was barley grown on the mainlands, organically certified from start to finish, and then taken to the distillery and distilled, and then aged on site. Now, the colors, both of these are almost the same, but I have to admit, this is first fill bourbon. This is 75% American oak and 25% wine. And there's a tiny little bit more of a, I don't know, for me, there's a little bit more of a color here with the wine cask influence in there, but it might just be my imagination playing tricks with me. On the nose, this is very, very, trying not to be insulting, almost simple. You have the barley, the grain notes, you have the vanilla, you have a little bit of that spicy oak, and then you have some honey with a little bit of a lemon zest in there. A little bit of citrus, a little bit of 7-Up, Sprite, whatever, that lemon lime moment, that citrus moment there. Bam. And that's it. This, on the other hand, gets a little bit unique, if I may say so. I prefer this in the nose. This actually reminds me more of like a marigold flower. I don't know if you've ever smelled them. They're not great smelling flowers. They're beautiful to look at. My grandmother used to like them. She would always plant them in the spring, and we'd actually have that. Even like have you ever had a sunflower and you've smelled that? It's a little bit of a floral moment, but not rosy, not dandelions. There's a little bit more of a darker honey moment going on here. This is, for me, I'm going to use the word more complex. This is fairly straightforward and simple. This has more depth and character to it. Trying them, 50-50, 50%, 50% ABV. There's a little bit more of a peppery spice, maybe a ginger spice going on in here, but it's fairly simple compared to what I notice on the nose. There is that vanilla moment. But there is a tiny, tiny bit of a either barrel char, or what I'm getting is that the system, either the filling system or the distilling system or the piping system, had not been 100% totally clean from a peated whiskey the time before. There's a residue peat in there for me. Tiny, 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 tiny little bit. Sometimes I get the same thing on the classic laddie. There is no peat. Well, yes, there is. Yeah, there's like 40% of the whiskey world knows that the classic laddie has somehow a residue peat, and that's what I'm getting here. Is this a good whiskey? Yeah, it's a C to C plus whiskey, more of a C plus. My problem is it's 80 euros. And my problem is not that it's too expensive. My problem is I could buy this instead for 60 euros. Now it's only 8 years of age, not 11, but it's still 50%. Is this organic? No. Is this important for me? My whiskey? To be very 100% honest, no. Not yet. Flavor driven is what I am, more than environmentally driven with my decision to buy which whiskeys. And so if I'm a flavor driven person and I'm looking for a new bottle from Bruichladdich, the question is, am I going to buy the Islay? Am I going to buy the organic? Or am I going to go for the Bear Barley? Also a brand new, at least for me here in Germany, a new release that I'm going to compare the Islay barley with as well in my next video. So let's go to the Islay barley. Mm-hmm. This has depth. This has character. This has a viscosity and an oiliness to it that surprises me positively. There's a light berry note going on there with that honey, almost like a brachla, that Turkish delight. That's that honey Turkish delight is here. This is some fairly good stuff, in my opinion. Much, much better than I was at all expecting, to be very, very, very honest. I do remember tasting that the first time. I don't think I was that excited about it. At least it didn't leave a great impression on my brain compared to this. This is okay. This is solid. This is absolutely just fine. But this is a step above. This is Concerto as the varietal of barley. This is the varietal of barley publican. And this is the varietal called beer, B-E-R-E. So now the question that I have to ask myself, and maybe you can answer this for me as well, how much influence did those different varietals of barley have on our whiskey? Is the oiliness and that great viscosity and mouthfeel due to the barley? Or is it due to the fact that here we have first fill bourbon, here we have 75% American oak, 25% wine casks? Are those wine casks doing something special? Now, I'm at the moment still learning a lot about distilling. And for example, this week was, I'm doing a podcast in German about bourbon, our Bourbon News podcast for Germany. And our focus subject this month is going to be the difference between pot still bourbon and column still bourbon. And of course, from my, almost everyone uses column stills. What Wilderness Trail started out with pot still, moved over to column still as soon as they noticed, hey, if we're going to really, really ramp this thing up, we're not going to be able to use pot stills anymore. That's fine. That's fine. And they talked about the flavor profile that you get from pot stills. But they also, Dr. Pat and Shane wrote an article for Vendome, and in which he wrote about the batch variations. So you have of course, you have your cutting points, so your heads and your tails and your hearts. And so one batch from a pot still can be different than the next batch from Doesn't have to be, but can be. If you run a column still, you basically set it up as long as you can feed it with almost the same stuff from the mash tun, put it into your beer well, and just let it run through there the whole time. You're going to basically have 160 hours, 7 days of continuous running without any problem. 8 hours cleaning, maintenance, and start back up for another week and just run it for another 160 hours. That's basically what a column still does. Pot still, you might be doing 3 batches a day. And then depends on when the guy actually, or the computer switches and so on, is there going to be any differences there? And so what I'm trying to say is this might be due to the barley variant. It might be due to the casks used. It might be due to the distiller distilling on that day and when he made his cuts. That can actually affect what we're drinking and the difference. And maybe that's sometimes the difference, the reason why you have a sister barrel that is maybe a little bit different than the other barrel. It might be the wood, it might actually be the spirit itself that is different because it was one batch and it was another batch. Now, in order to usually mitigate that problem, you gather more than one batch together in your high wines receiver tank, and you actually let them mingle, and then they balance out again just in case that you had a little bit of variations there. But still, this is so fascinating to have whiskeys that you can actually see the difference in the barley, in the organic or not organic. And to taste that and to experience that is a pleasure. Thank you very much, Bruichladdich, for giving us this opportunity. So my recommendation of the day is to go out and buy a Bruichladdich Islay barley from 2013. Do not pay too much attention to the nose, but actually thoroughly enjoy the palate here and enjoy the viscosity, enjoy the flavors that are going on here. And I think this is actually Concerto barley varietal is one of my favorites. Here, 20 euros more. Not as good as whiskey. Solid C as a taste moment. C- for value for money. Today, in my personal opinion, this is going to be a C+ to B- for taste. I'm really syncing up with this, and the value for money is a solid C as well. So my question of the day is, what is your favorite Bruichladdich bottling? Now there are many, as we know, but try to stick with maybe the unpeated Bruichladdich and write it down in the comments. And maybe your personal opinion about Bruichladdich, are they still at the forefront of innovation in Scottish whiskey, or have they been actually totally left in the dust by other distilleries like Nick Need and so on? WhiskyJason here. All the best to you. See you soon. Bye-bye.